Hey, hello everybody. How you doing? So this is our first video. I plan on having at least one of these up a week regarding history. So what we're going to do is talk about the Peloponnesian War. Okay. This chapter is a culmination of Greece and what we've been talking about, and it's basically the endpoint to the golden age of Athens. So a little background. We all remember about the Delian League that the Athenians set up, and this is one of the things that also angered the Spartans and a lot of everybody else throughout Greece. However, Sparta set up their own league. It's called the Peloponnesian League, and it was a loose association of allied city-states. These members promised to assist each other, to have the same friends and enemies, and to follow Sparta. The one thing about this, the military leader of this league was always a Spartan. The Greek writer Plutarch wrote that the Peloponnesian League began around 550 BCE when Sparta became concerned about a possible revolt by its helots and by a nearby rival city-state, Argos. By 510 BCE, all the city-states of the Peloponnesians were members. Eventually, city-states from beyond the Peloponnesians also joined. The Greek historian Thucydides also lived during the time of the war, wrote about the Peloponnesian League. He describes a system whereby city-states choose representatives to vote on issues and make decisions. Whereas in Athens, the Athenians required members of the Delian League to pay tribute. The members of the Peloponnesian League only had to contribute military during times of conflict. So that was one of the big differences. The Spartans decided how many troops each city-state had to send when needed. So that was the big difference. You had the Peloponnesian League, we had the Delian League, and obviously that's created a rift between the country. Following the Persian War, Athens sought to expand its empire in the region through alliances and by founding more colonies. Athens and Sparta had fought each other before the conflict called the Peloponnesian War. This is what we're talking about. They had declared a truce, but it was a fragile peace, like all of it. Athens eventually took actions that were disallowed by the truce. Some diplomatic efforts were made to resolve the conflict, but these always failed. Then the city-state of Thebes, an ally of Sparta, attacked an ally of Athens, Plataea. We remember Plataea from last chapter, or from 2 chapters ago, during the Persian War. This was the start of the major conflict. After about 10 years of fighting, another truce was declared. It lasted for about 6 years, which is then the Athens made the decision to attack Sicily. Your chapter talks about this in great detail, which was essentially the final phase of the war. The Greek methods and approaches to war became deadlier during the Peloponnesian War. The Greek armies also began to use more mercenaries, enslaved people, and foreigners. The casualty count was very, very high. Thucydides was a contemporary historian, meaning that he just recorded and analyzed many of the events of this war. His account of the war is considered to be the first recorded analysis of a nation's war policies. He provides detailed descriptions of the war, of Athenians' debates about the war, and of the plague. His history stops abruptly, though, ending in the events of 411 BCE. Several Greek writers began their histories of Greece by picking up about that time in which his accounts ended. So that's kind of a brief summary of the Peloponnesian War. Okay, some of the things you need to remember here as we look through this. You always remember your vocabulary words. That's very important. I think I've hammered that through you guys through the year because they always build and build and build. Diplomatic relations is what they kept trying to do to keep themselves out of the war. Okay. One of the other things I want you guys to look at is when we talked about the golden age of Athens, where Pericles was able to, one of the things he did was build those walls around Athens. And as we see here, was instrumental in keeping Athens safe against the Spartan army. Now, unfortunately, when we get down here to where they talk about the war continues and we get the plague and everybody was stuck inside of Athens and you know, when you lose a quarter of your populations to disease, it's not pretty. And that's when Pericles, he passed away. And that's when you start getting all kinds of other people other Greek senators or Athenian senators put in charge. All right. So those are some of the things I want you to look at. Remember, anytime you see a name, you need to make sure we keep that name. You annotate it. You know the name, what it responds to, as well as vocabulary words or rock quarry, which is simply where people are basically mining for rocks. The one thing out of this chapter is that it talks about the very end here. Though the Spartans took over Athens and they put in their own form of government, who here can tell me in the comments what kind of government they think this is right here? All right. Everybody should know it. All right. But more importantly, if you see down here in this last paragraph, it talks about that the nobles were so corrupt that within a year the Athenians rebelled against them, and that they restored their democracy, and the kings of Sparta decided as long as Athens was peaceful that it would allow the Athenians to have their democracy. Okay. And however, the Athenian Empire and the golden age of Athens was over, meaning that they were no longer the most powerful, the wealthiest. But what it tells me the most here at the end is, so they had a 20-something year war over nothing. So there was no resolution other than now Athens was no longer the power state. So that's it for this video. That's all I need you guys to do. Make sure you comment on my question, and then and you could comment on here in the comment section where you see the assignment, or you can send me a message. Either one's fine. All right, and then make sure you turn the assignment in so I know that you've watched the video. If you have any issues looking at this, or if there's lag or something like that, please let me know. All right, have a great day.